Okay, so this video is about Chapter 4 and specifically looking at the educational theories or philosophies that are in Chapter 4. And so these philosophies and theories really need to be present inside your own philosophy of education because these theories kind of encapsulate what you believe about education and how students learn. So these types of philosophies need to be represented inside your philosophy of education, kind of using the terminology and the examples that are provided both here in this video, the PowerPoint, and in your textbooks. So the first one we're going to touch on is behaviorism in the classroom, and that's Skinner's behaviorism. And essentially what it means is that teacher's the authoritarian, teacher is the one who provides the information, and students respond to that information, usually kind of in a very structured environment. So since it focused primarily on facts rather than concepts, let's take learning your multiplication facts as an example. So in behaviorism, you've got multiplication facts, that's your clear objective. Then the teacher is going to focus on those observable behaviors. So for example, can you learn facts 0 through 5 in this amount of time? If you do, yay, you get a reward, you get a sticker, you get to go pick out a treasure box, you get 5 minutes at recess, you get to have fun nacho multiplication party. And if you don't, there are other kind of negative reinforcing behaviors with that. So, you didn't get the 5 minutes of recess, or maybe you have to come in for study hall, or maybe you have to miss 5 minutes of lunch because you need to go and practice your math facts. So in behaviorism, there's a lot of kind of teacher control. So it's not real student friendly or student engaging. There's not a whole lot of ownership the student has in behaviorism. However, teachers kind of have a blend of a lot of these theories because there's kind of a time and place for behaviorism as there is social cognitive theory and cognitive learning theory itself. Sometimes there are just facts that you have to know, like multiplication facts. Where I'd caution teachers is how much you're putting on that kind of reward process when it comes to some of these facts. Just because you will have a variety of kids and a variety of readiness levels inside your classroom. So next, let's look at cognitive learning theory. And the major theorist when it comes to cognitive learning theory is Piaget. And if you don't know Piaget in the educational world, that's bad. So if a principal or somebody asks you, hey, what do you think about Piaget? And you say, I have no clue who that person is, that's a bad thing. So make sure there are a few theorists you kind of need to know. Skinner with behaviorism, Piaget with cognitive learning theory, and then we'll get to Vygotsky with social cognitive theory. So in cognitive learning theory, basically what it's saying is that students change over time their ability to learn information, how they learn information, and what they do with that information. So in about 18 months to 2 years old, that sensory motor stage, all that learning is happening via the senses. So we've all seen kids stick something in their mouth, touch, move, look at it, hear it, shaking rattles. So everything that they're learning about their environment is through those senses. Then as they move into pre-operational stage, a lot of what they learn is through play. So this is kind of what we see in our preschools and our kindergartens. We have all these stations. They have art station, and they have kitchen, and they have block station, because they're learning through that discovery, through that playtime. But yet they're still very egocentric. So most of that play is going to be about their own world, and they haven't really gotten into other perspectives yet. The other thing about pre-operational stage is that they're very literal, meaning, and that they're very simplistic. So they learn red, and red is apple, red is fire truck, red is stop sign. They learn that even those shapes can change and things like that. They're very literal. So let me give you an example. Let's say we have a piece of clay, and you have two pieces of Play-Doh or clay out. One is very squished into a small ball, and the other one is kind of in its original shape out of the container. And you ask them, well, which one's larger? They're immediately going to say the one that looks bigger, even though they might be the same amount of Play-Doh or clay. Same thing with a pancake. You may have a fat pancake and a very flat one, and it has the same amount, but they're going to look at whatever's bigger. So they can't really kind of reason and logically think through some of those things at the pre-operational stage. As we move into the concrete operational stage is when they're able to have a little bit more logic. So they can understand conservation. They can understand that even though it looks different, it's the same amount. So at that stage, they're able to process through some of those things a little bit better. However, what they're not good at ages 7 to 11 is kind of that hypothetical or the abstract thinking. So to give them a hypothetical to say, hey, what if this were to happen? What would you do? Or what would happen in this scenario? And how would that affect XYZ over here in science? They're just not ready to do that yet. Really, those kinds of operations happen in the formal operational stage and ages 11 or up. Now, where Piaget kind of gets strong criticism is that some of the current cognitive theorists believe that students can move through these stages at different ages, so that they're saying that some kids at age 7 can do formal operational thought. And some, 11-year-olds just aren't there yet at formal operational thought. So some people see this as more fluid. They also see that maybe you retain some of the things from the earlier stages and kind of move on, where Piaget believes strictly and you move from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And then lastly, the one I'm going to touch on is social cognitive theory, and that's with Vygotsky. And basically what he believed is that children learn through modeling and peer interactions. So let's say you had a bridge that you were trying to build, even 4 or 5 years old, let's say at your block station and you're trying to build something. He believed that children learn through modeling and that social interaction. So they're going to look at, hey, what did their blocks do? Let me try that. Okay, so the teacher did this on the board. Let me see if that works for me too. So a lot of what he thought is that we learned through these social interactions. And again, the truth of the matter is, as teachers, we probably get a little bit of all things. We do group work. We believe they learn from peers. We do a little bit of behaviorism. We do a little bit of cognitive theory. But at the end of the day, kind of what is your overall style and your overall philosophy, and make sure that's very clear in your philosophy of education. So your paragraph 1, your paragraph 2, your paragraph 3 should pretty much align. So if you have, hey, I want hands-on learning and self-discovery and all this group work, and then you have paper and pencil assessment test, that doesn't really match as far as theories go. So just make sure that there's clear alignment throughout your philosophy of education, and that it kind of touches back on some of these concepts in chapter 4.